I'd like to throw at you now some of the central ideas of communism and therefore Maoism, of Marxism, I'm using it loosely, and Maoism, that would help you understand at least some of the ideology that Mao is following. So let's pick through what this actually means when someone says they're a communist. Well, what are they saying? Well, firstly, we can say that communism is a left-wing ideology. Marxism, left-wing, progressive, radical, looking for change in society, as opposed to right-wing, which tends to be conservative, looking for a sense of stability and order in society. Communism, a communist, a Marxist, is essentially a revolutionary. They're not waiting for society to evolve slowly. The belief is that for this ideology to take root, there needs to be sudden dramatic change, not always violent, but there needs to be an intervention. It's an anti-capitalist, anti-middle class, bourgeois, investing class ideology. The revolutionaries of this extreme left point of view would argue that those who invest to make money, to make profit, exploit others, and that society needs to be reorganised, sometimes violently, because people won't give up their wealth. It needs to be reorganised so that progress can occur as is right in the world. Communists, Marxists, Marxian socialists would often argue that the construction of national boundaries are false. It's a false way of seeing the world. That workers of different countries have more in common with each other, and classes across national boundaries have more in common with each other than having people separated by where they live, what their nationality or language is. So in other words, a German worker has more in common with a Russian worker, a Chinese worker, or an Australian worker than that same German worker would with the middle class, bourgeoisie, the aristocracy of Germany, the royals of Germany. That in communist Marxist ideology, there's an internationalist flavour to it. Loyalty is to class, not to nation. In communist ideology, atheism has an important place. There's a sense that religion has become an anaesthetic, a way of dulling the senses of those who are exploited. Marx referred to it as religion being the opium of the people. There's an idea that if you behave yourself, your reward will be great in heaven. The meek will inherit the earth. Don't rock the boat. Stay in your place. Live good lives and be rewarded in the afterlife. As a product of this industrial revolutionary age, communist ideology, Marxist ideology, sort of cements itself in the language of science. It likes the trappings of scientific, rational approaches that grow out of the Enlightenment. So those 6 one-word concepts go some way to help you understand what a person like Marx would believe. Marx, what Mao would believe. Mao, raised a strict Buddhist family, was an atheist. Mao, while coming from a society where there are a lot of gods and so on, and household gods that are recognised in shrines and in communities there, he would have actually said, well, we need to be much more scientific, and those ideas are superstitious and holding us back. Mao saw the workers of the countryside as incredibly important. He felt they were being exploited by landlords, by the wealthier members of society. So it's pro-worker, pro-peasant class, rather than the capitalist or middle class. So let's go through 3 major premises of communist, those in the Communist Party, their ideology, which is based very closely on the ideas of Marx. Firstly, communism is seen by Marx as the final, the highest form of human development. It's a sort of utopian end goal state that humans will reach when all property is shared. There's no private property anymore, it's not needed. Where all people, regardless of gender, regardless of race, would embrace each other as their equal. All would work for a common good, for the good of the community, without the need for governments, nations, and other divisions in society to enforce that. It's about caring for everyone. It's interesting when you put it like that. There's quite a lot of the central ideas of communism that we can find, or Marxism, we can find in a lot of the world's religions. Marx anticipated that communism could only come into being after a process of historical materialism. This process was about development through identifiable phases over centuries. He anticipates that as we approach the high point of capitalism in the Industrial Revolution, that the urban industrial working class, the proletariat, in the highly industrialised parts of the world, like Britain, like Germany, even the United States, would rise up against the established privileged classes, the older orders, the capitalists, the bourgeoisie, middle class, those members of the liberals who triumphed in the French Revolution, nationalists, royalty. All of those groups that benefited from the Enlightenment and cemented their power were those who would lose the power in this next stage. Now, the proletariat often needed to be guided. They were so disadvantaged in Marx's view that there would be a need for a cadre, and I'll just hit pause here for a moment on my clock. A cadre, or sometimes said a cadre, of Communist Party revolutionaries, a vanguard of conscious, educated, committed Marxists who would guide the working class into seeing the world for what it is. This alliance of Marxist communist cadres, and that's where the Communist Party saw themselves fitting in, would work with the working class through trade unions and through other groups to establish a temporary, and it's important to say it was temporary, dictatorship of the proletariat. The view was that capitalists, the bourgeoisie, the liberal, the privileged classes, they're not just going to give up their power, their privilege, their wealth, their land, their property without a fight. So when socialism is rising in the world and replacing capitalism, there would be a need for the dictatorship of the proletariat. In this workers' dictatorship, selfless Communist Party cadres would work with the workers, with the committees of the workers, the Soviets, sometimes they're called, the workers' Soviets, workers' committees, to distribute and redistribute the power and privileges of society, restructure society, start removing inequalities. In turn, people would come to realise universally that this is a great thing. And that the need for the cadres, these dictators of the proletariat working in the interests of the workers, the need for them would just wither away. There'd be no need for governments anymore. There would be just simply a pure communist utopia. So finishing this idea off, perhaps the original members of the Chinese Communist Party, such as Mao, were very, very sincere in their beliefs. I suspect they were. There's a certain idealism that grew in the early days of the Communist Party. But my suspicion, and you can look into the sources, I think this is one of the great things about independent source investigations. My suspicion is that idealism seems to have faded over time. Perhaps during the Civil War era, it became about power, and it became about the struggle, and it came about your position and your status within the party and within society that mattered. Certainly as time goes on, after the 1950s, after that taking of power, the Chinese Communist Party and Mao seem increasingly inconsistent in terms of how they apply Marxist communist ideas, theories, beliefs. They seem to be pretty willing to step away from ideology. Some historians even go so far as to say Mao almost behaves a bit like some of the emperors did. Somehow the chairman of the Communist Party becomes this high point individual with a cult of personality built around him. I'm not sure it's an excellent view of history to see Mao as just another emperor. I think he's distinctly different. But he's certainly not very closely matching the 1848 Communist Manifesto's ideas. Perhaps the Chinese Communist Party of Mao used the language, the ideas, the concepts of Marxism if and when it suits their priorities. Maybe it does align with their original values. Maybe they do hold on to those values. But they certainly seemed to be prepared to change ideas, adapt their principles. They're very flexible in their beliefs and could even dismiss them when it suited, especially if it was about taking and holding power.